Hey guys, you're here with Sean Brooks, the realtor, aka the real estate guy. And I want to talk about a topic that a few people have asked me about more recently in this market. They've asked about what's called a lease back or renting the home back after you sold it for a certain period of time. Um, I want to dive deep into what I know, the pros and the cons. But what I want to do is I want to share a video with you from a fellow realtor down in Houston about the topic, right? Because I this way I don't have to dive all the way back in.
Had to start from
All
scratch.
right, apologize here.
To get back to six figures.
All right, we're gonna start this video, and I'm gonna let you listen here. As soon as it gets past, as soon as it get past the commercial. But I just want you guys to because I know a lot of you guys are looking in regards to this topic. You want to sell your house, but it's going to be a challenge maybe selling it and the move into your new house. So the lease backs were created to kind of like alleviate this particular problem. It has some pros. He may not dive totally into the cons, but I'm going to let me go back to the video here. I'm gonna play this video and then I'm gonna interject as he's talking. So let's unmute it.
The Franklin team with EXP Realty here in Houston. And today I want to talk to you about seller temporary leasebacks. A seller temporary leaseback is simply an agreement or a contract between the current homeowner and the buyer, the purchaser that's buying that house. It allows the current seller or the current occupant of the house to stay there temporarily, even after closing. So post-closing occupancy is another way to term it. There's a contract in place, depending on the buyer's mortgage requirements. Usually the maximum term is around 60 days. So you could close on your home and be given the opportunity to stay in that house for up to 60 days.
All right. So the reason why he says 60 days is this. When you're signing your mortgage documents, normally it says that you got to move into the property within 60 days. That's one of the terms or one of the things that you have to fulfill. The problem with it is though, is exactly on 60 days and you're moving in the 61st day. It's not like it's some kind of enforcement guys out there that the police is going to interject and say you didn't move in time. But you want to get in there around that 60-day mark. So let's get finished playing the video.
There's a written agreement in place, obviously. There is a security deposit that's given to the new buyer or the new owner of the house, so they're to protect against any damages. And then the daily rate or the amount that you pay is negotiable, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So,
all right, so let me reiterate. It's a daily rate that you're going to pay, so it's like you're paying rent. And then is a security deposit for any damages. Now that right there is where when speaking to multiple attorneys, they're a little concerned about that part right there. That's one of the areas that they're a little concerned about because that can cause problems. It can be a dispute over this wasn't damaged, this was working, and now it's not working. Stuff like that. Okay, but let's continue to play the video.
So first, let me explain the benefits and risks from a seller's perspective or from an owner's perspective when they're selling the house to taking advantage of a seller temporary leaseback like this. Some of the benefits are that you've got the flexibility in moving. One of our biggest concerns is that a home seller is making plans for their move and trying to time things out just perfectly, which is really, really challenging to do. Closing dates can move around. Mortgage companies can be delayed. So if you're planning on closing on a certain date, there's a good chance that maybe it doesn't close that day. Maybe it takes an additional few days or an additional week before you can actually close. Having a seller temporary leaseback like this in place allows you to stay in the house until after closing. So you don't have to worry about that. If there's some sort of delay with the closing, that's fine. You're not moving out anyway. So you can make plans and have that extra flexibility. It also prevents you from having to be concerned about finding a new house and being in that new house and trying to close, simultaneously, which is tough to do. Timing is a big deal. Knowing that you're closed and you've got your money in the bank is a huge deal before you move, and then having that flexibility.
All right, so let me interject with this, right? This is the number one reason why most people ask about the lease back. They're concerned about selling and then moving, right? And getting into that new house. Well, all right, that's one of here's one of the major concerns for attorneys when we asked about this particular topic. What happens if on the day that you're supposed to move out, you don't move out? And then the new owner has problems getting you out. So essentially, for the buyer, and if I'm representing the buyer, I'm trying to protect the buyer because you just became a landlord. And that means that if you had to evict someone, you have to go through the same process as a traditional landlord. So so what does that mean? You're not going to get the person out of the property right away. It may take 6 months or anything in between, right? It's not going to happen quickly. Now, theoretically, it shouldn't be a situation where the previous owner that sold you the property is going to stay in the property because they already have something in motion that they're going to be buying a property, unless they just back out and pull out, right? That's one of the areas that is to concern for any lawyer, for any attorney. What if that happens? It's not like it can't happen. Never heard it did happen, but that would be one of the concerns.
Some of the risks from the seller's perspective, I mentioned a minute ago that there's a security deposit that you got to give to the new owner or to the buyer of the house. One of the risks might be that you're concerned that the buyer may nitpick you on little repairs or not give you your full security deposit back. Documenting everything, taking photos of the condition of the home when you sell it, making sure that there's a written inventory form so that everybody understands that there's a nick here or a nick there. They purchased the house that way. It's not something you caused while you were there as a tenant. Is very important. So just making sure to document everything and it'll be fine. Okay.
Now, what he's saying is correct, right? But the way we think things will work is not always the way things will work. Number one, you have to come up with what is the rent? What is a reasonable charge for the person to rent the property back from? The security deposit. It could be a challenge for the previous seller, maybe, right? Because now they sold the house, so they should have some funds. But let's say you're selling and you're not walking away with as much money as you thought you were going to walk away with, and you have to give up a security deposit of, let's say, $2,100. See, anything could be there's so many different variables to just the lease back topic that we have to look at everything case by case. And I will interject with a solution to just the lease back.
So let's look at this more from a buyer perspective now. Some of the benefits and risks of having a seller temporary leaseback or offering a seller temporary leaseback. One of the benefits is that it could really strengthen your offer. It's a very competitive market, as we all know, throughout the nation, not just here in Houston, but it's very competitive and it's tough for buyers to even get their offers accepted. Allowing a seller or the current owner of the home that extra time and that flexibility, and oftentimes we see buyers offer free leasebacks where they'll let the home seller stay there for up to 2 months and not charge them anything. That's one of the big benefits, is it really strengthens your offer as a buyer. One of the other things is maybe you're in a lease that your lease doesn't end for a couple of months. If that's the case, allowing the closing to happen and letting the seller stay there for a couple of months, paying you rent would allow you to kind of finish the terms of your lease before you have to move into the new home. Some of the risks that you have to consider as a buyer or a landlord in this case, where you're allowing a seller to lease back from you after closing, might be damages caused or repairs that might come up during that lease back period. Clear communication, documenting everything, having photographs of the condition of the home when you purchase it. Those are all really important things, and making sure that there are no questions on something that might have been caused accidentally by the homeowner while they're still living there or during the lease back period. So documenting it all. We have plenty of contract addenda that we use to make sure that there's checklists and things with the condition of the homes to protect you from things like that. Thanks so.
All right, so he's 100% right and correct with that. But it's always risk involved. No matter which way you're going to look at it, it's going to be some sort of risk that's involved. And our jobs as realtors is to try to alleviate that risk. And here's the other thing I want you to think about. So if you're looking for someone that's willing to do a lease back from you, you may have a stronger buyer that's willing maybe to pay more to even buy the property, or just a stronger buyer from the perspective of the type of loan that they have, the type of funds that they have, that they could put down with their earnest money deposit. So you're eliminating a group of people that you may not want to eliminate, right? Because the unknown is there. We don't know if that particular buyer, that's a stronger buyer, is willing to wait 2 months, 3 months. But you don't want to go past 2 months because of the new buyer's mortgage. You know, if it's cash now, you're talking something different. But if it's a mortgage buyer, then you have to take in consideration that 60-day window. So you don't want to have the person wait longer. Also, these agreements, you don't really want the mortgage company to be aware of what's happening, because then the person is no longer buying a residential property to live in, but they're buying a property to become a landlord. All right, so here's a solution to it. So you can handle this situation in a few different ways. If you put the house on the market, right, and you're searching for a buyer, then you basically could say you're looking for a 60-day or 90-day settlement date. So this way you can find that buyer, and they can go through the process of getting their mortgage approved, getting the inspections done, doing all that. But then they know up front, because we put this documentation out there, that you're looking for a 90-day settlement. It may sound unusual in this era right now, but it can be done. I just showed a house where the particular seller was looking for a particular date because their new home wasn't going to be ready until a particular date. It was new construction. So they knew they had a date, and anyone buying new construction knows that if we pick June 1st, you want to pad that maybe like 2 weeks, just in case if there's any delays, slowdowns for any reason. So this way, you don't be homeless. So that's a solution, right, to a problem that you may be facing. And the lease back is an option. But if you have one of the buyers that's talking to legal counsel, that's going to give them the pros and the cons. Many of my attorneys will recommend not doing that and doing more of a delayed settlement or extending the settlement. All right. So if you have any questions, reach out, ask, like, share, comment. And it's nothing against my fellow guy from EXP. I just used this video because I pressed on time, didn't want to reinvent the wheel or more or less, he's 100% correct, totally correct, right? But this is the solution to the solution that could be a problem that might be shared with a particular agent, with a particular buyer. So this is the answer to that objection. All right. So take care, like, share, comment, give me some feedback. I really like feedback. All right. So take care and enjoy your evening. And hopefully you'll like some more videos that I'm going to post up. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.